Here's something that I picked up this morning and paid a little bit too much for it. After the lady told me that she'd had several people call and express interest in buying it from her for the purpose of either painting it up or gutting it or repurposing it into something else or some such hideous thing. And all it takes is for me to hear that to sometimes go a little crazy and pay more than I should for stuff. Well, it turns out this is a Franken set. That means the cabinet came from one place, the radio came from another place, and the record changer came from somewhere else. The name on the front of the cabinet is Automatic, and the cabinet design looks like something from the 30s, I'd guess. We have doors here for the record storage, and the cabinet needs a little work, and this door is busted, and I'm going to have to glue that back. But when I lift the lid, I see that someone has an RCA Victor, a little 5-tube AM radio chassis, probably from the early 40s, installed in this cabinet. And the record changer is a VM 900 series, probably from the early 50s. Well, it's a fair conversion, not the best I've ever seen, but certainly not the worst. You would think they would have at least tried to stain this motor board to make it match the rest of the set. But at any rate, I'm going to try to bring it back to life. Here's our off-on volume. This is probably radio and phono and tuning. This is a tone switch that I've already determined is not connected to anything. However, that can easily be taken care of. So let's pull the chassis out of here and see what we've got. Okay, we're all disassembled, and this is definitely what we call a Franken set. Take a look at the chassis here. Here's the chassis. You can see it's just a 5-tube, looks like an RCA radio chassis from the early 40s, and it still has the remains of the original field coil speaker. That someone cut the side of the speaker off and did a little hacking on the chassis in order to make it fit. And here are the leads running from the original speaker voice coil that connected to this speaker that was mounted right here. And this speaker is going to need a little repair work to its cone. And all this mess is where they had the turntable and had the record changer hacked in and the power cord, so all that will have to be rewired. And here's the tone switch that is not used, and I just can't stand unused switches. So what we'll do there is we will make use of that switch by using that particular switch to switch a capacitor from the plate of the audio output tube to ground, and then that way it'll be a tone switch once again. It appears that this switch was used in conjunction with the original radio chassis that was installed in this set. And here's the VM tri-o-matic record changer with its platter removed. I'm going to have to go look on the VM site to see how to decipher this code, but I think the date code is contained in this number here, but this is definitely an early 50s, I'd say between 52 and 54 record changer. You see it has the 3 rubber speed turrets along with the main drive wheel that will likely have to be rebuilt unless I decide to install another changer in this unit. I mean, this thing's already a Franken set, so it's really not going to hurt that much if I decide to install something else in here. And it's quite possible that this center switch might have originally been a tone switch for the radio, but then someone disabled that portion of the circuit and rewired the switch into the signal path to select between radio and phono. But yeah, this is just a standard 5-tube radio chassis. Getting it going shouldn't be too big of a deal. And I figure the reason someone left the original speaker in here is because this is an electrodynamic speaker, meaning that it has a field coil instead of a permanent magnet, meaning further that the field coil is also used as the filter choke in the power supply, so that's probably why they left it there. However, I'll most likely remove it and just install a resistor and higher value filter capacitors in place of the field coil, and that'll get rid of this hacked up thing here and take a little weight off of the chassis to boot.
I used to always use Benjamin Moore.
Okay, we're playing.
But I digress.
Although the audio is a little distorted.
I try and stay on top of the health.
No filter hum at all.
Numerous. Know the guy from Newfoundland.
But you can hear the audio distorted. So, let's see what's causing that problem. I bet it's a bad coupling cap. Okay, I'm now checking the control grid voltage at the output tube. I want to see a negative voltage or something close to 0. Instead, I'm seeing about almost 11 volts there. So that indicates either a gassy output tube or this coupling capacitor is leaky. I'm voting on the capacitor being bad. Okay, I've replaced 2 capacitors in the audio circuit. The audio coupling cap, which was a 0.005 microfarad, and the plate bypass cap for the audio output tube, which is a 0.02 microfarad, along with 3 resistors that were out of tolerance. The first resistor is the grid resistor of the audio output tube. It's supposed to be 470 k ohms. It's reading 804 k ohms, so that's highly out of tolerance. Next is the cathode resistor of the audio output tube. It's supposed to be 120 ohms. It's reading 187 ohms. And what we did for that is wired 2 240 ohm 1/2 watt resistors in parallel to give us 120 ohm 1 watt. I realize the original cathode resistor was only a 1/2 watt, but 1 watt will make it a little bit better. And finally, the plate resistor of the first audio and detector tube. This is where the tube gets its B+ voltage through this resistor. It's supposed to be 220,000 ohms, and we're reading 537,000 ohms. And now we're testing the 0.005 microfarad coupling cap for leakage. The eye should close quickly and immediately open when I crank the working voltage up. Let's see what happens. It's staying closed, and we're only applying about 70 volts. So yeah, that capacitor is extremely leaky, which confirms the voltage measurement, the positive voltage that I was reading on the audio output tube grid a couple of moments ago. And now the audio output tube plate bypass capacitor. Yes, extremely leaky. No surprise there.
Mini split system
that sounds a lot better.
Tired of cooling and heating the ducts in his well-dramatic. Fujitsu systems are so they cool in summer. $55,000 of debt. Broke. Most folk just run out and buy something brand new.
Now checking the control grid of the output tube, we have basically 0 volts there, which is what I want to see. Or possibly a little bit of a negative voltage, but that looks good. It sounds pretty good. Although I can detect that it's trying to oscillate a little bit at high volume, so probably one of these other paper caps bad.
A Liberty safe.
Okay, here we go. I've removed the original speaker, and I replaced the field coil with a 270 ohm resistor. The field coil actually measured 330 ohms, but 270 ohm was the closest I had in a resistor. That's no big deal. It's not that critical.
Simply add your content towards customer. Best read local guides have for 6 years now kept our focus. Meridian, Mississippi.
There's the R&B station. I think they cut their power back at night, so that's why they're a little harder to pick up at night.
And Solomon knew God, and he knew God before God spoke to him.
Okay. And still left to do is replace some of these wires. You can see the insulation just crumbling off of them, and that could be a safety issue. And this capacitor right here, I believe, is the AVC return cap, and it was extremely leaky. I just have it temporarily soldered in place because I see this mess here where somebody did a little circuit modification to add a phono input. I kind of want to make that look a little bit neater. And we're now testing the tubes, and we have a 12SQ7 that's weak, very slow to climb up, and it also has excessive grid emissions. We'll want to replace that tube just for the heck of it, which should possibly improve performance a little bit. Well, I see the dial pointer fell off at some point. I'm going to have to dig around on the floor and try to find that. I also discovered that someone plugged a 35L6 where a 50L6 should have gone, so we'll have to replace that to get our filament voltage down right. And we'll replace the 12SQ7 that's weak and take care of the sloppiness where they modified this with a phono input. But we'll do that in the next video. We're about out of time for this video. But I think we've made great progress here. Okay, there you go. Thanks for watching, and more to come later.
We've got a life of love.